How do you handle leadership and self-awareness? Why is that even important? I'm Jen Whitmer, and I help teams and leaders solve conflict and personality clashes. And today, I'm so happy I have a wonderful leader and friend to come join me today. And she is going to talk a little bit about being an Enneagram One and leading and running a company and running a team and all the goodness that she has to offer us in 15 minutes. So it's everything, right? And so if you are wondering what the Enneagram is, it is a personality framework that helps us understand why we think, feel, and behave the way we do. So we will give you more goodness as we go along, but I want to welcome Megan Ericson.
Hello.
Hello. So glad you are here.
Why don't you slide into your frame?
I know. Here she comes. I feel like I'm a fancy producer. So tell me, Megan, I would love for you to introduce yourself to the people.
Oh, thank you. I am a social media marketer. I'm in Central Ohio. I have 3 kids. I have my own business doing this full time, helping people with all the platforms. And my favorite thing is to help people grow their social platform to grow their business.
Yes, excellent. And you do excellent work at it. So I always learn so much from you, and I appreciate that so very much. So Megan has had a career of different kinds of leadership positions, running her own business. She runs a team within another membership community called Hope Riders. And Megan is also a fellow Enneagram coach. So we sometimes love to nerd out about Enneagram work. We promise we won't alienate you today. We're going to give you good tips. So my first question for you is really a big, broad question about why do you think it's important for you to understand yourself as a leader? How does that help your leadership practice on a daily basis?
Well, it helps immensely for ones in particular. I'll just speak for my experience and my type, in that I can tend to think in black and white, right or wrong. Things are right or they're wrong. And it took me a long time to figure out that, number one, not everybody thought that way. Not everybody was seeing something as right or wrong. And number two, that their perception of what right or wrong could be different than mine. So
why is that?
What? So I had to learn to ask questions from both our understandings, right? So we could get on the same page, because it was really important to me that these things were right and done well. I'm a pretty meticulous manager that way, and that, I had to learn how much is too much to demand for things to be a certain way, and how much. And also, we hired these other people, or I've chosen to work with these other people to partner with them to do the really great work that they were called to do. And I'm sitting here micromanaging what they do. So I really had to learn to let them step out first, do what they do best. And then if I had feedback, bring that to the table, ask them how they thought it went. How's it going? Do you see, are there any issues that you're dealing with? And then say, okay, this is what I'm viewing from my perspective. Do we think is this something we need to work on? I also had to learn too, when I knew to communicate when things are really important to me, because again, some things are so important to me that they be right. Some things not so much. So, and for other people, they're like, well, that's not their pain point. So I also had to learn to communicate, because I would get this built up resentment, which is a one thing. I would get this built up resentment and anger if they didn't feel the same way, or they weren't doing the same way. And then I realized, I'm not literally saying, this is important to me. I need you to focus on this. And I can do that in certain things. I just pick the things this one thing is super important to me. If you could just indulge me and make sure that this is this certain way, but then let them do their magic, because you've hired them for certain reasons to do what they do best. So let them do what they do best.
Yes.
And yeah.
So good. I mean, there are so many nuggets, like I just want to pull out from what you just said. And if you were watching live, make sure that you tell us that you're here live. And if you've got questions, you can drop them in the chat, wherever the comments are where you're watching. It's different if you're on your phone, your computer. Anyway, so the big first revelation you said applies to all personality types. I had to realize that the way I think is different than the way other people think. And that right there is a huge revelation. And sometimes we have that revelation multiple times. Like, oh, right, they don't think the way I think, because we just get into our normal and we don't realize that other people are perceiving that a different way. And so like right now, y'all see the couch behind me. I can't see the couch other than the camera, and I'm looking at a bunch of trees. But if I were like, hey, y'all need to, pick whatever out of the tree, you're like, there are no trees. Our perspectives are so different. We have to do the second thing that you said, which is ask questions, get on the other page. Like, I think that is so important for every type, but particularly for ones, that idea of loosening that there could be multiple definitions of right and wrong. Mm-hmm. I think that right there just makes everyone take a breath. Like, there are multiple definitions of right and wrong. How does that work? and so no. The thing that I heard you say about the impact of that is letting other people do their magic. Mm-hmm. Like, that's why you brought them along. And I think that's really, really powerful. When you think back of, like, that's the, skip to the good part reel, like, oh, here's what I've learned. Would you indulge us in a story of how that played out for you? Like, was there a situation where you're like, oh my gosh, I have to say these words out loud and I don't know how it's going to go?
Mm-hmm. Yes, there have been situations. Well, I will say I also have learned to say, how big a deal is this? Like, how wrong is this? Because or I have asked, like, this seems wrong to me. Is this wrong to you? Just to get a gauge, because everything's blaringly wrong to me. And so I lose perspective sometimes. So
that's a great question. I want you to say it again, because it's a great question.
Oh, what was my question? I totally forgot.
How wrong is this?
Yes. How wrong is this? Like, can you give me a scale? Am I blowing this out of proportion? Because to me, it's all in the same category.
Right.
So,
right.
So the story, I, on the Hope Writers team, we all flew to the same city for this big launch we were doing to welcome new community members into the membership. And there was a snafu with an email, and the email was sent a day before it was supposed to be sent. So it said that there was an event that night, and there was not an event that night. So I'm like, oh my gosh, this is, so I have
the end. It is the end.
So I was like, oh no. Okay. So we're going to either look really dumb, sending a retraction, or I don't even know what to do. How do I tell people not, people are going to start showing up. They don't know if they don't check. Spiral.
Right.
So
all of the overthinking the one kind of jumps into.
And then, I have a lovely manager who is an Enneagram 3, and he taught me a great lesson of, hey, opportunity. We have something happens. We have an opportunity here to service these people who can show up tonight. And I was like, okay. So as many 3s are apt to do, he's like, new event. So we just on the fly welcome into those people that we accidentally invited to an online event that night, and had some great conversations, and then sent the email again at the original time we had planned to send it, and had our original event at the time that we had planned to send it. Mm-hmm. And it was okay. And it was totally fine, And so I have learned, like, okay, that is, I think, my life's work. It's pretty much my life's work, is to stop labeling things as good or bad. Like it is what it is. It is what it is. Everything. One of my favorite mantras is everything is unfolding perfectly as it is meant to be. And then I just said to myself, it's happening perfectly as it's meant to be. I have a choice here. What do I do now? That's just where I have to stay.
Oh, I mean, I can hear in your voice, and everybody who's ever sent an email out wrong with a typo or an incorrect link. I mean, I consult for an ad agency, and that happens for large companies all the time. So it's not like this one individual doesn't know what they're doing, which is often the thought we have. Mistakes happen, and you created an opportunity from that. And I appreciate you just being vulnerable to walk us through the like rising panic of like, like we start breathing in this part of our lungs rather than the whole lung. And it's like, I don't know what do I do. And I think particularly for Enneagram Ones, so Enneagram Ones are motivated by this deep sense of I want to be good. And like, if I don't do it perfectly, I'm not good. So it attacks identity. And so I appreciate you just being this vulnerable of like, here's how that shows up for me in leadership. I made a mistake, which for other people are like, okay, so what's the best solution? Whereas you had to move past, now I'm not a good person, which is a totally huge jump, but that's the leap Enneagram Ones make. And like you said, it's your life work to say, I have choices in front of me, not I'm a bad person.
Absolutely.
And so I think that's a really lovely story to share with us, and especially an online event. And side note, I got an email saying I was supposed to be at an online event on Tuesday night or Monday night at 7, and it had 2 different times, and they didn't send any clarification. And so I was annoyed because I was sent early. So I would have much more appreciated somebody like, hey, we sent the wrong time, so we're going to hang out a little more or come back at an hour, like
right.
No communication. Yeah. Irritating. Anyway.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm a 7. You wasted my time? What are you talking about? I could have been doing fun. So when you think about, I want to go back to what you said about learning not to micromanage. I think that is a frustration that a lot of employees have. So what I also want to do is for you to talk about how you moved past that. And also, I just want the people who are listening who are not micromanagers to hear why that might be a struggle for your boss. Like just to develop a little bit of empathy around that. So what did you have to learn in that micromanaging sense to release a little bit?
I learned so many things. Number one, collaboration is magic. Like it's so much better when we all work on it together, right? So, and like I said before, you brought these people in because they have this perspective and they have a skill that you don't necessarily have. And so we need to let them exercise that skill. Also, it's so much less work when you don't micromanage.
Yes.
I mean, honestly, I did not come to that realization because it was like this whole, like, I'm going to be more emotionally healthy. It was like, I literally couldn't do more. Like, I was like, I'm just gonna, I had too much to manage. And then I realized, like, when I thought I was dropping the ball, the person was running in their lane and killing it. And I was like, oh my gosh, I was holding them back. I don't want to hold them back. That's the worst, and I feel I don't like being micromanaged. Right. I don't like when somebody tells me exactly what to do and how to do it. So it was like, that series of revelations from just like having to not being able to micromanage, not being able to do that, because you get to a point where you just can't make everything perfect, and and I have dreams and goals that I want to accomplish, and that's a big thing for Ones is not moving forward is not going forward because they're afraid it's not going to be perfect. And I just had to get over it, because it's like, I'm not going to be able to accomplish all these things, number one, by myself and doing all the things. So I have to be vulnerable, which it feels vulnerable to let people in and to let them do the things that I was doing. And it's kind of one of those, like, as you do it, the more, what is that kind of like the immersion therapy? I don't know.
Exposure therapy.
Yeah, like the more you just like let other people do things and see how they're doing it, they're so much better than you could have done it. It's like, oh, okay, this is this is how it's done.
It's so true. And I think one of the things that's so challenging, particularly for ones in leadership, is because, so tell me if I'm wrong, I'm kind of making this guess, that you see the people under you as an extension of you. So if they do it wrong, then it was my responsibility.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And one of the things, like you said, you just have to practice. You have to kind of do that and then allow it to fall away. Like you have to trust and sometimes make a few mistakes and learn that it's okay. Like that, the second part is really important, that you learn it does work out. Everything is unfolding the way, like you said, your mantra is really helpful to set your frame of mind. And it's one of those mysteries of maturity. Like we don't look back and say, oh, that is the day I stopped micromanaging. We look back and say, oh my gosh, I'm so much healthier. My team is performing so much better. It's like a dimmer switch of, oh, this is it. And I think that's another thing that's particularly hard for ones who like to measure and put things in spreadsheets. Like this is how, because you always want to self-improve yourself too. Like just allowing it to fall away and allowing yourself to practice is part of growth that feels uncomfortable, but is the way forward. Like it's
absolutely
it happens.
Yeah, you're doing it wrong if you're comfortable, really. I mean, that's like secret to life.
It's so true. Just outside your comfort zone is where the magic happens.
Yeah,
it's where the magic happens.
Exactly.
Okay, we have to go. I can't believe what time it is. Every time I'm like, how has it already been this long? So if you are curious about how your personality shapes you in your leadership and in particularly in conflict settings. So back to that conversation with her 3 manager and 1 Megan, like how does that work out? Next Wednesday, I have a free workshop called How to Resolve Conflict, the Power of Your Personality. And we'll talk a little bit about what is the Enneagram? How do you find your type? And what are the conflict styles within the Enneagram? So this is a workshop I offer for free. You can show up live. It's not a recorded webinar. You get to ask me questions. So next Wednesday, the link is in the comments, again, wherever they are, and you can click to register for free. So Megan, thank you so much for joining us. Tell the people where they can find you and the information that you love to give, because it's all fantastic. I love receiving.
Oh, that's so kind of you. Thank you. You can find me at meganericson.com. That's where the hub of all the things. I love LinkedIn, but I also love Instagram. I hang out there a lot. So I'm at Megan Ericson over there. And if you need to know, you don't want to keep up with social media, but you would just like to know, like, what do I need to worry about now? I have a weekly email that gives you one thing, one trend to look at and see if it's worthwhile to apply to your business. So you can get that at meganericson.com/newsletter.
And I love it because you tell me how much I need to pay attention to it. There's a certain number of thumbs.
Yes. You rate it. Is this worth it? It could be. You can try it.
And I find it so helpful. And I have shared that with other clients that I consult with who are not solo entrepreneurs. They're other leaders in other agencies, and leadership presence is becoming more and more important. And that's been really helpful information outside of just the entrepreneur space. So,
oh yeah,
so many.
Applies to all things.
Yes, it does. Well, thank you everybody for coming to Thursday Thoughts. We will see you next week at 9:05 Eastern here on LinkedIn. Bye, everybody.
Bye.